Welcome to Ren Reviews, where we talk about everything movies. And over the weekend, I had a chance to see The Flash. So, with a film that has about a $220 million budget, with some sources claiming it to be much higher, the film so far in 78 markets has only grossed about half of its budget back. And a lot of so-called experts are saying that may not surpass its budget at this point, only bringing in, I think, $55 million its opening weekend, which is sort of sad in a way because this movie is not as good as the very first reviews are saying. How, months ago it was saying this is the greatest superhero movie of all time. It's not. But it's also not nearly as bad as some of the ratings will have you believe from Rotten Tomatoes, because the movie is good. It's a solid film. It's much better than the recent DCEU outings. It's better than Shazam. It's better than, saying it's better than Shazam is not saying much. This is on the level of the first Wonder Woman film, which was a very, very good, well-made film. And it sort of suffers from the same things, though, in a way, because in the first Wonder Woman film, it was great up until the third act. And this movie is much in the same way. It carries a lot of weight with it, though. It carries a story that is very much beloved by the fans of the DC universe, of the comics, and of the Flash comics. You're taking a story of the Flashpoint Paradox, which in my opinion is one of the greatest DC movies and greatest DC comic runs of all time, and trying to bring on screen the essence of that in a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. To say that is a difficult task is very much an understatement. The story itself is ripped from that comic line, but it does change up quite a bit, and it sort of suffers in that way because you are stuck with just those four characters. You have the two Barrys, Bruce Wayne's Batman, or Michael Keaton's Batman, and Supergirl, who are all great in their roles. And pairing Barry, or our Barry, how do I say that? Barry Prime, with a younger, more immature Barry who has taken for granted the fact that he's had a mother his whole life, sort of brings our Barry back down to earth, to where he's not as abrasive and annoying. And that is the smartest thing I think they could have done to make us sort of enjoy his take on that character better. And while I've never been a fan of Ezra's Flash, he certainly grew on me in this movie, and he can see the maturity in his character grow throughout the film. The younger Barry is super annoying, and you can also see his change from the beginning to the end. And there is a point where I believe it's in the Batcave, you start to see the effects on younger Barry by older Barry, where he's starting to lose his innocence. You're starting to see that younger Barry is still such a child that little interactions have massive consequences on his psyche later on. You'll see it in the film. As soon as you see this character in the Chrono Bowl for the first time, you know exactly who it is. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but the movie doesn't really hide its surprises very well. You know what's going to happen. You know the direction that they're leaning, and they lean pretty hard. Nevertheless, it's still very much entertaining. It's a good film. Supergirl, she doesn't have a whole lot to do, plays her role very well, and it's almost as if this movie underserves her, because she could have been a lot more important to the story. And as you get closer to that third act, the movie sort of, I wouldn't say falls apart, but you can tell that it's more and more difficult for the film to continue its momentum that it's built up from the first two acts. And it's being crushed under the weight of trying to juggle everything that it's trying to do. And between fan service, which I love in this movie, and trying to tell a cohesive story, it sort of struggles as it just kind of lurches towards the end of the film. And once it gets to the end of the film, it just has to just do it. It has to get it over with. It has to rip the Band-Aid off, and boom, there's the end of the film. Michael Keaton is fantastic in this film. Ben Affleck, to me, finally has nailed his Bruce Wayne. He's old. Well, not old, but older. He seems tired. He's sad. He's lonely. This take on his Bruce Wayne is the best that he's ever done. And you only get him for that Bruce Wayne for a few minutes, but I would have loved to see this version in the other movies. The way he speaks, the way he carries himself is it's different. There is a very funny scene in this movie with the lasso of truth in the beginning, where you do get a short cameo from Wonder Woman. It's very funny. And that goes to show this movie, though, is actually funnier than I thought it was going to be. There's a lot of heart, a lot of warmth, a lot of character in this film. The movie doesn't suffer from it either. It's not oversaturated and them trying to be funny. It's natural human interaction that makes it funny, that makes it more relatable to the person watching it. So I really, really enjoyed this movie. I hope they continue along this storyline, and I'm anxious to see where they go because they reset everything at the end of this. Now, the last scene of the movie, the cameo, I'm not going to spoil it, but man, why? And speaking of cameos, before I get out of here, there are a lot of Superman and older Batman cameos. I think we all knew that there were going to be a lot of Superman and Batman cameos in this one. Now, the Superman ones are more recent, and a lot of the Batman ones, though, are older. You don't see Schumacher. I mean, you might see a glimpse, but you don't, they do close-ups of Nick Cage's Superman, which is pretty awesome, actually. Christopher Reeve's Superman. You see the back of, I think, Henry Cavill's Superman, but then you see the older Batman, like the black and white Batman. I'm not really sure if there's a reason for that, but there also is what appears to be a Teddy Sears cameo from the Flash TV series. Come to find out, that's not Teddy Sears. There's actually just an uncredited actor, he's not in the credits, who looks like Teddy Sears. What's funny to me is he was not actually Jay Garrick in the series. He pretended to be. So it's a little bit weird them using a cameo for a guy that was never actually a version of the Flash in any media. From what I was told and what I read is that there was a Grant Gustin cameo, but they cut it out for time constraints or for whatever. And so it's a little bit weird that they decided to include that one that doesn't make any sense over a Grant Gustin cameo. It's a little bit weird to me, the decisions, but overall, Andy Muschietti did a pretty good job on this film, and I'd like to see more from him. But I would also like to see a more broad take on what's happening in the DC world. Hopefully, they'll able to actually get their stuff together and make a cohesive, well done shared universe for these characters to be in. I know all the fans, we all want this. Let's just hope for the best. That's it for me, guys. Until next time, see you later.